Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Restoring Hope Breakfast. Thank you for being here and showing your support for the Center for Victims of Torture. My name is Islam Al-Aqil. I am a resilience programming trainer at CVT. Some of you may recognize me from the 2018 Restoring Hope Breakfast. I am so excited to be here with you again today. I wish I could be coming to you live from the studio like others today, but I am still very glad. I will be very glad to be welcoming you from my home in Turkey. This is a very special Restoring Hope breakfast because it is the first time having survivor from the Middle East share their story since the event started 13 years ago. I can't tell you how much it means to me that you will get to see for yourself the powerful impact of the Survivors of Torture Initiative, or Sauti, my voice as we call it. Many people ask me why I am doing this work. When the war in Syria started, it's impacted me personally. I am doing this work with Sauti because it means a lot to me, because I love Syria and Syrian people since I was a child. I have been working at CVT for almost 10 years. I have seen what happens when there is war and violence. I have sat with survivors while they share their difficult stories. I have heard their pain. But I'm working where I need it the most. There is a lot that CVT can support and change. I have seen this change happens. I have seen survivors heal. I am so proud of every CVT staff who is still working and fighting. And I'm proud of all of you today for always showing up, always coming to hear us and supporting survivors. All of us have this humanitarian soul. Most especially all of you who came here today to listen and show that you care. We are here this morning to spend 1 hour together in celebration of the healing work at CVT. Today, we will update you and celebrate what your support means around the world. This morning, we want you to understand the powerful impact you are helping make possible. Before we move into the formal part of today's program, I want to make certain you understand that we will be talking about the realities of CBT work. Some stories or examples may be difficult to hear, so I encourage you to take care of yourself as needed. And now, some important thank yous. Even though we can't hear you clapping, you can go ahead and clap anyway. And you can also show your appreciation by typing into the chat box. Some of the most important people in our big virtual room are today's Hope Ambassador. Without you Hope Ambassadors, this event is not possible. Thank you for inviting people who are passionate and ready to learn more about the Center for Victims of Torture. I also want to extend a very special thank you to today's sponsors who made it possible to hold this event in this studio. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, Integrated Direct Marketing, IDM, has demonstrated that business and human rights can go hand in hand. Thank you to our supporting sponsors listed in your screen. And finally, thank you to our associate sponsors also listed in your screen. Because of the generosity of these special sponsors, all of the contribution you make today will go directly to support life-changing and life-saving care for survivors of torture. Thank you. Thank you, CVT's board directors. Many of you are also Hope Ambassadors. We especially appreciate your leadership and all the incredible work you do. In just a moment, you will hear from CVT's President and CEO, Dr. Simon Adams, who will share his vision for CVT. But first, we have a short video for you.
Hello, I'm Simon Adams, President and CEO of the Center for Victims of Torture. On behalf of the thousands of women, men, and children, survivors, activists, and human rights defenders we will serve around the world this year, I thank you for being here. And an extra special welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. I want to begin by acknowledging that I'm speaking to you this morning from the Dakota and Ojibwe homelands here in Minnesota. I recognize their unceded sovereignty and honor their elders who have been the custodians of this land across the generations. We are living in turbulent times. According to the United Nations, this year the number of people displaced by persecution, conflict, and atrocities reached 100 million for the first time since the Second World War. Among them are an incalculable number of torture survivors. How do we even know where to begin when faced with such a humanitarian catastrophe? On a global scale, CVT is working with our partners and friends around the world to bend the arc of history away from indifference and inaction and towards justice and human rights. But this is a generational struggle. It will not be won in a day. But I'm also here to tell you that CVT's day-to-day work does change the world of an individual survivor. And by changing the life of one person, we are changing their world. And we can do it right now, today. It's been said that statistics are just ordinary human beings with the tears dried off. So who are those 100 million people? I've met them on the US southern border where CVT runs Proyecto Mariposa with our partners at the Casarelita shelter in Tucson, Arizona. That's where I met desperate people seeking asylum in the United States who had come from as far away as Uzbekistan and Ukraine, but were mostly from Central America. They arrived from a detention facility on a bus with their feet and hands in shackles. I saw one middle-aged Venezuelan woman who was unchained just outside the front door at Casarelitas. I watched as she rubbed her wrists and then put her face to the sky and gestured with her hands as a sort of salutation to the sun or to God. It was impossible not to be moved. She is one of the 100 million. I've also met the 100 million at our clinic in Clarkston, Georgia. That's where I met Joshua, a young man from West Africa who'd been detained and horribly tortured in his home country for the so-called crime of being gay. Working with CVT trauma counselors over several years, Joshua was transformed from someone who was unable even to make eye contact with other people to becoming a passionate and verbose refugee advocate. Joshua is also a tragic reminder that in 68 countries, it is still illegal to live and love as an LGBT+ person. In 6 countries, it's punishable by death. And in all too many places, LGBT+ people are still persecuted. ostracized, attacked. Often they have to flee. It has been estimated that there are currently at least 1,000 LGBT plus refugees in Kenya, where CVT has a program that is focused on this unique refugee community. Their tears also make up part of that 100 million, along with others who are tortured for their religious beliefs, their ethnicity, their politics, or some other imagined crime. Their tears join those of individual survivors and human rights defenders we work with on 5 continents around the world. They are why you and I are here today. At the notorious Security Branch 251 detention center in Syria, one of the guards once told a political prisoner that I will take you behind the sun where even the flies will not know where you are. By contrast, the logo of CVT and one of the most evocative symbols of our community is the solar eclipse. Because we've heard that living your life as a torture survivor sometimes feels as if someone has blocked out the sun. But coming to CVT helps survivors slowly re-emerge from the shadows. This year, in response to this unprecedented global crisis, it will take nearly $30 million to carry out our plans, the largest budget in our history. But the truth is, we're stretched thin. The number of places we should be, using our expertise to help those forgotten or forced to flee for their lives, keeps growing. We just don't have the resources to say yes to everyone pleading for help. And it is heartbreaking to tell someone who has survived torture, someone who has made it to a refugee camp or been granted asylum, that they are just going to have to bury that trauma inside them for now and write their name on a CVT waitlist. But I still have hope, because I look around and I see each of you. You are here because you want to make a difference for 1 or 2 or 3 of the 100 million. I have hope because I know that together, you and I can make that difference. It doesn't matter if the torture survivors are from Syria or on the US southern border or in Ethiopia, Uganda, Iraq, Kenya, Turkey, or any of the other countries where we work. With you working alongside us, we can give new life to people that some malign authority tried to silence and bury in the darkness. Together, we will help survivors re-emerge from behind the sun. With your support, imagine how many more people we can help. Like that unshackled woman at Casa Elitas, putting her face to the sky for the first time since she was released from detention. Or like Joshua down in Georgia. Or like Riyadh, who you'll meet in a moment and whose indomitable spirit should be an inspiration to all of us. Imagine what other new voices we will hear when we expand CVT services. Imagine how those voices will reverberate and make the torturers tremble. And then imagine the healing and hope we will magnify and multiply together. Thank you.
I remember I was at 6 years old. The soldiers came to my village and began to search all the villagers' house. After that, they took the villagers to the schoolyards and they tortured the villagers there. And I saw this in front of my eyes. And maybe if anybody asked me why you are human rights defenders, I will say to him, maybe because I saw these pictures when I was a child. If you want to study the university, you have to be rich. And we weren't, of course. In Syria, of course, I meet some friends in Damascus. They told me that the president's brothers, one day, he went to the Tadmir prison and there he killed hundreds of the unarmed prisoners. They took me and put me in one of the cell. I don't know why. Why they are torturing me? But they began to asking me that some question about, like, look, you are a Turkish intelligence, or you are a Turkish spy. I'm just 18 or 19. The hurting side was when they brought my girlfriends and they began to torture her in front of my eyes. One day the high officers called me to her office, to him office. And he began to talking with me. He said, look, Riyad, here in Syria, we don't any human rights. And we don't any newspaper to write about what happened with you. If you died here, nobody will heard about you at all. My girlfriend, she said, don't accept what they want from you. Let them kill us, but don't accept that you are a Turkish spy. I know you aren't. I stayed there in this cell, in the darkness, for maybe 2 years. I make a hunger strike too. And I said, okay, I will not stay here. I will die here. Or you had to take me from this place. And afterwards they carry me to the Sinise prison. The Sinise military prison, I mean. It was, I think, 2009 or 2008 maybe. One of the guardians came and opened the door, and he called my name, and he said, you can send the news to your family to visit you. My mother told me when I came back, she said I was in the land under the olive tree, and a stranger woman came and asked me, are you Riyad's mother? I said yes. And she said, I have news from your son. Your son is alive, and he know in the Sinise prison with my son. My mother told me, she said, at that moment I began to look to the sky, and everything about me was changed. My world changed. The things around me is changed. Everything began to have a meaning. Because for the first time, somebody came and told me that you are alive. She hugged me and I hug her, but she doesn't kiss me. She just put his face here on my neck, and she began to smell at me. She smelled me a long time and crying, just was crying. She wasn't believe that I am here again. It was one of my dreams to build an organization when I was in the jail to help people like me. After a while, we meet CVT, the Center for Victims of Tortures. And of course, CVT changed it. Firstly, personally, changed my life. I always look at the people who come to our centers. I began to focus on their face, and I saw the sadness step by step, day by day. I began to saw the smile came back to their face. They began to bring again the hope to inside themselves. It was a healing for me. When I saw the people smiling, I smiling from deeply inside myself. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today to share my story. As you saw, I was detained and tortured in Syria for 21 years. No one knew what happened to me or where I was. After a few years, my parents started to lose hope. And because of my absence, they had to sign paperwork in the court that stated me as dead. So, in a few years after detention, I was not only facing torture in prison in Syria, but I was officially dead in my home country, Turkey. You know, when I was on the airplane flying to the USA, I was remembering how one day I was under the ground in my dark cell. But now, I am here with you. I feel like I was reborn and have a new life as a new baby. But of course, I am in my 30s. I was in prison for 15 years before I was able to have a visitor. And that visitor was my brother. I remember when I first saw his face. He became a real man. When I left him, he was 8 years old. But now, he's a big man. I looked at his face, and for the first time, I understood how much time had passed, and I was left behind. I wasn't aware that I became a big man too. As a newborn, I had to learn all new things, like technology, driving a car, and work. I didn't know that people got wireless phone that can take photos. There is no smartphone there where I used to live. I didn't know that coffee machine got so simple like this. I didn't know that I can watch movies in the airplane. I didn't know about the credit cards. But most important, I didn't know how to heal my wounds from the detention. After I came back from prison in the beginning of the 2017, I met two friends who are also ex-detainees. They were immigrants from Syria to Turkey. And we decided to build an association for victims group. We built the Association of Detainees, a missing one in Sinise prison, IDMSP, our association. Our first project was documenting the violence that happened in the prison. We built a database for ex-detainees and the other database for missing ones' families. We did interviews and issued our first report about the Sinise prison. And we soon heard about the Center for Victims of Torture, CVT. They invited me for a workshop about how we have make interviews with detainees or the victims in a way without harming them. And I began to hear about something, they call it self-care. It was a strange thing for me. But afterward, I learned that we make the self-care because we are always reading and hearing the hard stories. It was an important thing for me. Millions of Syrian refugees came to Turkey, my home country. And among those, there are thousands of detention survivors who need help, just like me. And I want to help them all. Give them a hand in their new life. But I have only two hands. Together with one of the CVT's programs, Sauti, or My Voice in Arabic, we created the Family Center, a program of support to torture survivors and families of missing one on their road to heal. CVT gave us a hand. And when someone gives you a hand while you are still exploring your new life, it is not just a hand. It means much more for us as survivors. Each time I saw a survivor say to me, "You changed my life," or "I feel like I was born again after the therapy session," I feel healing for myself and feels like I am alive again. For us, in the Association for Detainees and Missing One at the Sinise prison, we considered the help and support of CVT as a great model. Without it, we wouldn't be able to give a hand to hundreds of survivors. It was not easy move between death and life and being newborn again. There are many newborn like me, still waiting for such care. And each of you can give a hand. So let me thank you all for your all contribution to help me grow and to help other survivors to do so. I would like to sing a song for you, for a very famous Turkish singer. His name is Aşık Veysel. He became sick when he was 3 years old, and then he became blind after this. His father bring a Turkish instrument for him. We call it saz. He started playing and sing with his darkness, same as me, when I was in my individual cell in the darkness. I kept singing his song. So let me play one of his songs to thank you in my way. Uzun ince bir yoldayım, yürüyorum gündüz gece. Bilmiyorum ne haldeyim, yürüyorum gündüz gece. Gündüz gece, gündüz gece, gündüz gece. Bilmiyorum ne haldeyim, yürüyorum gündüz
Thank you, Riyadh, for sharing your experience, story, and music with us. Your strength, vulnerability, and compassion are palpable and powerful. My name is Dick Sinise, a longtime CVT supporter, member of the Restoring Hope Society, Hope Ambassador, and board member. Several years ago, I had the incredible opportunity to visit CVT's program in Amman, Jordan. While there, I was introduced to a group of courageous women who were working with CVT to rebuild their lives. You see, they were from Syria. We talked about many aspects of their lives, but what really stuck with me, even after all these years, was hearing them talk about their missing children. I could feel their desperation and pain while they clutched all they had left of their loved ones, identification documents and photographs, just like Riyadh's mother must have done. And I said a silent prayer of gratitude that they were not enduring this alone. I will never forget them. CVT's Jordan program didn't always exist. Neither did our work in Ethiopia, which continues in spite of active war, or our healing care in Uganda, Kenya, Iraq, or across the United States. CVT has grown dramatically over the past 3 decades, and we have a lot to be proud of. And it's thanks to you. But our work isn't done. This year, it will take nearly $30 million to continue this essential work. And I need to tell you something. It's not enough. It's just not. Simon reminded us that there are 100 million displaced people around the globe right now, and among them are an unthinkable number of torture survivors. It's hard to wrap your mind around that many people who are hurting and in need of healing care. So just think about Riyadh. CVT was there for him, and you were there for him. Simon also shared his vision of his CVT that has enough resources to serve tens of thousands more survivors of torture than we currently reach. A vision of a CVT that can respond to the swelling numbers of survivors of torture and war atrocities around the world and right here in our own backyard. I contribute financially because I have personally seen the difference CVT makes in the lives of survivors. And I want to see our budget doubled or tripled and eventually someday eliminated altogether. In these challenging times, I want to know that I'm doing all I can to show up for survivors like Riyadh. And I'm here to ask you to show up too, and to do so more resolutely than you ever have before. Our giving makes up about $7 million of the $30 million it will take for CVT to provide healing care in the coming year. And what have we learned when we increase $7 million to $10 million or even $15 million? Things change. We will be in more places around the world to say yes to thousands more survivors of torture, gross human rights violations, and conflict-related trauma. We will strengthen external partnerships with torture treatment centers and enhance the collective power of activists and human rights defenders on 5 continents. And eventually, when we're able to do all that is needed, our dream of a world free from torture will finally become reality. To achieve this future, it takes all of us to believe and to act. A passionate group of CVT supporters have already given generously prior to today. They've contributed $112,500 in a matching gift to inspire you to make your own meaningful contribution. My sincere thanks goes out to each of these donors. And now it's time for us to join them. What I'm about to share is really important. That $112,500 matching gift applies to anyone who joins our Restoring Hope Society or anyone who renews or extends their current pledge. I know you're eager to help survivors get their lives back, and I promise you that in just a moment you will have the chance to take thoughtful action and make your contribution. But first, I want to personally invite each of you to join me as a member of the Restoring Hope Society. What is it? It's a group of deeply committed people who pledge an annual contribution of $1,000 a year or more for 5 years. When we make that 5-year commitment, we make it possible for CVT to say yes to more survivors. There are 3 levels of giving in the Restoring Hope Society. $1,000 a year for 5 years makes it possible for Alma, a Syrian torture survivor in Jordan, to receive physical therapy. Just $84 a month makes certain she has regular therapy to reduce her debilitating chronic pain so she can hold her child. $5,000 a year for 5 years covers the cost of group therapy for Mohammed and 9 other survivors of torture in Ethiopia, where they'll learn they're not alone and torture is not the end of their story. And finally, $10,000 a year for 5 years provides care and support to a single torture survivor in the United States. Your gift of $10,000 a year will help one person put the trauma of their past behind them and look ahead to a life filled with opportunity. Before we share the contribution link with you, let's take a look at what you'll see when you click on that link. To become a new Restoring Hope Society member, click the first box. Once a year, we invite you to join the Restoring Hope Society. Today, your new contribution and 5-year pledge will be matched dollar for dollar. And for those of you who are already Restoring Hope Society members, click on the second box. When you increase or extend your pledge today, that new portion of your pledge will be matched. You will be able to enter the amount by which you want to increase your annual gift and the number of years you want to pledge. A special thank you to the 100 of you who are already Restoring Hope Society members. I invite each of you to make a gift toward your current pledge today by clicking on this box. For those of you that would like to make a contribution at another level, click the third box. If you would like to give your gift in a different way, a donation of stock or through your IRA, or mail a check, follow this link. Once you fill out this form, it will put you in touch with helpful CVT staff who will complete your gift with you. While I would like to welcome every one of you into the Restoring Hope Society, I understand you may not be able to do that today. No matter, know this: your gift matters. You matter. Today, our job was to inspire you to act, to inspire you to allow CVT to say yes again and again and again. So as you click on the link to make a donation, and you're deciding how you are going to put your values into action and stand with survivors of torture, I want you to ask yourself one question. Can I give more than I have in mind right now? Can I increase it by 50%, by 100%? A few years ago, I met a survivor in Nairobi, and he asked me to do all I could to allow CVT to help more people like him. I'm asking you to help me live up to that promise today. Click on the red box at the top of your screen that says, "Help a survivor get their life back." When I think about you and the hundreds of others who are here with us, I am incredibly inspired. You chose to show up, and you are making a life-saving commitment to some of the 100 million people we've heard about today. Torture leaves victims alone in the darkness. You can help them find their way back into the light. Thank you.